Next, we review the fourth essay, Indigenous Women as Mothers in Conquest Era Peru by Jane E. Mangan from the book Women of the Iberian Atlantic, written by both Jane and Sarah Owens, which demonstrates the role of the indigenous women as mothers in Peru under Spaniards' control. According to the essay, this role was planned by the Spaniards as a way to cripple the Incan Empire and mix the Andes system with colonial Spanish rule. Unfortunately, this essay shows that the reality of women's role as mothers in Peru during the colonial era is more traumatic than it appeared. It states that indigenous women were taxed to bear children with the Spaniards and raise them without a historical record of their existence. Not only would the women lose their children to the legal imperial power of the Spanish men, but many were a consequence of violent sexual encounters or cohesive relationships. For example, page 96 of the essay explains even though many of the children didn't know their real fathers or live with their relatives, the Spanish men would claim them and take them away from their indigenous mothers. This example states that the mothers in conquest era Peru were robbed of their kin by the Spaniards based on claims and cultural beliefs stating that the children belonged to them no matter what, which is inhumane and wrong. I think that historical and emotional tragedies like this has influenced Latin Americans, including Peru, to use both sides of this historical and emotional impact to tell the full story and then use that knowledge as a lesson to prevent this from happening. The essay also illustrates that the indigenous mothers were required to provide for their children through their inheritance. Spanish law states that legitimate children can inherit an estate unless they've committed unforgivable crimes. For example, page 101 states that if the individual has no legitimate children, the parents will be next in line to inherit the estate, and if either the man or woman had children who were born outside the wedlock, then the child would inherit the estate, but certain conditions must be applied. The conditions include that the child must have been born when both parents are unmarried, and that a father must publicly accept the natural child to name him or her as the heir. But it is different for a woman. The mother's natural child will automatically be considered an heir if the child is named in the will. This example shows that despite the mother's children being taken away by the Spanish men, the children have an inheritance opportunity, although part of a new family. This shows that the Latin Americans used this knowledge to educate the people on the advances and disadvantages of the Spanish Empire's financial opportunity for the family inheritance. The online article Moving Mestizos in 16th century Peru, Spanish Fathers, Indigenous Mothers, and the Children in Between by Jane E. Morgan illustrates the complicated experience of both indigenous women as mothers and their Maceros children in colonial Peru. It explains that when the Spanish population settled in Peru by the 1540s, a practice was put in place that the fathers would claim the child of the indigenous mother as their own, even though this action would be attested with the help of a third party. The documents for this would be considered uncontested. For example, the article points out that these acts can precede official action that would likely involve a discussion between the indigenous family and the Spanish father with who or where the child can live. However, it also shows that the removal could be demonstrative based on the debate about paternity, disagreement on child claims, or assertion of control. This would show that the father would claim the child as a benefit from their labor or as political power through the offspring's bloodline. Morgan, 2013. This example demonstrates that the Spanish father who takes the indigenous mother's child as their own would use them for their benefit. After reading the chapter of one of the 10 essays of the Woman of the Iberian Atlantic and the online source, I would say that the impacts on indigenous women in conquest era Peru make me feel sorrowful. I feel this knowledge would be useful for people to gain an understanding of the impacts of mothers being treated wrongfully during colonial Latin America and should be used as a reminder to strengthen family values and traditions in Latin American culture.